The night a forest went silent. Mara Ellis knew something was wrong. Silence had a sound of its own, thick, heavy, pressing against her ears, and it arrived just as her loyal German shepherd Atlas stopped mid-step and lifted his head. Mara was 7 months pregnant, a widow for nearly a year, and used to listening closely to the world around her. Survival had taught her that. She rested one hand on her belly, feeling the steady reassurance of life within, and tightened her grip on Atlas's leash as a low helicopter thrum faded somewhere far away. Then Atlas pulled hard, urgent, leading her off the narrow trail and into the brush where the moonlight barely reached. Mara wanted to call him back. She should have. The sensible thing was to return to her small cabin, lock the door, and wait for morning. But Atlas had never pulled like this before. Not for deer, not for coyotes, not even when thunder rattled the hills. This was different. This was need. She followed, breath quickening, boots catching on roots, heart pounding with the steady drum of fear and resolve. The smell hit her first. Metal and smoke and something sharp she couldn't name. Then she saw him. He lay against a fallen log, barely visible beneath leaves and shadow, his uniform torn and darkened. Blood, enough to frighten her, soaked into the earth, but she forced herself to breathe. Panic wouldn't help. Atlas whined softly and pressed close to the man's chest, as if guarding the fragile rise and fall of his breath. The man's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, then found Mara. His lips moved. No sound came out. "I've got you," she whispered, not knowing who she was promising. Him, herself, or the child inside her. She scanned his body quickly, the way her late husband, Daniel, had taught her back when he still laughed easily and believed the world would give him time. Daniel had been an army medic. He'd taught her how to stop bleeding, how to keep someone conscious, how to stay calm when everything screamed to run. The memory cut deep, but it also steadied her hands. She knelt, ignoring the ache in her back, and worked. Pressure. Bandage from her pack. Atlas stayed still, eyes alert, a silent sentry. The man's breathing steadied, shallow but present. His dog tags glinted faintly. Navy SEAL. The realization landed with weight. Whatever had brought him here wasn't an accident. She had no phone signal, no nearby neighbors, and no guarantee that help would come. But she did have a truck, a cabin, and a choice. She chose compassion. Getting him to the truck was the hardest thing she had done since Daniel's funeral. Atlas helped, bracing and pulling where he could, a living bridge of muscle and loyalty. The man groaned once, then fell silent again. Mara drove with one hand, the other pressed against the wound she could reach, whispering steady nonsense to keep herself from breaking. The cabin lights cut through the dark like a promise. She laid him on the couch, warmed water, checked the wound again. The baby kicked, strong and insistent, as if reminding her that life had a way of demanding attention all at once. When dawn came, pale and quiet, the man was still alive. He woke fully hours later, eyes sharp despite the pain. He took in the room, the dog at the door, Mara's careful distance. "You found me," he said, voice rough. "You found us," she replied. "Atlas did, anyway." He swallowed. "Thank you." His name was Luke Harper. He didn't say much more than that at first. He slept in fits, waking to drink water, to wince, to murmur things that sounded like coordinates and names. Mara fed him broth, changed bandages, and kept watch. She didn't ask questions. She knew how secrets worked. Daniel had carried his share home in his eyes. On the third day, a convoy rolled past the dirt road and didn't stop. On the fourth, Atlas bristled at distant sounds, and Mara felt the old fear return. On the fifth, Luke asked her why she'd helped him. She considered the truth. "Because someone once helped me," she said, "when it mattered." He nodded, as if that made sense. The truth came out in pieces. Luke's team had been compromised. Someone had sold them out. The operation had collapsed into chaos, and Luke had taken a round meant for someone else. He'd run until he couldn't, then waited to die. He looked at Atlas when he said that, voice steady, eyes not. Guess I was wrong. The days blurred into a rhythm of care and quiet. Mara chopped wood, cooked, and listened. Luke healed slowly, stubbornly. Atlas never left his side. At night, Mara lay awake, thinking of Daniel, of the baby who would never know their father, of the strange way grief made room for strangers. Then the men came. They didn't wear uniforms. They didn't knock. Atlas's warning gave her seconds. Enough to usher Luke into the back room. Enough to lock the door and stand between danger and the people she loved. The first man smiled like a threat. He said they were looking for something that didn't belong here. Mara felt fear rise, then settle. "You should leave," she said. "There's nothing for you." The man's gaze flicked to her belly. Something like hesitation crossed his face. Then Atlas growled. What followed wasn't loud or cinematic. It was fast and terrifying and human. Luke emerged when he had to, moving with pain and precision. Atlas did what he'd been trained to do, protect. The men retreated, cursing, leaving tire tracks and broken silence behind. When it was over, Mara shook. Luke sat heavily, breath ragged. "I'm sorry," he said. "I never meant." She stopped him. "You're alive," she said. "That's what matters." The truth shocked everyone when it finally surfaced, not because it was dramatic, but because it was ordinary. The betrayal came from greed. The rescue came from kindness. The world kept turning. Help arrived days later, official and careful. Luke left with gratitude and a promise he didn't know how to keep. Mara watched the convoy disappear and felt a quiet settle in her bones. Months passed. The baby arrived on a spring morning, crying strong and bright. Mara named him Daniel James. Atlas stood watch, proud and gentle. A year later, a letter came. Luke wrote about healing, about accountability, about choosing a different kind of strength. He wrote that he carried the night in the forest with him, not the fear, but the mercy. Mara read the letter aloud to her son, to Atlas, to the quiet cabin that had become a refuge. She didn't need applause or headlines. She had learned what compassion could do when it refused to look away. Sometimes, late in the evening, when the forest went still, Mara listened. The silence no longer frightened her. It reminded her that even in the darkest moments, a single choice could change everything.